Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of hip hop, looking at tracks that would fit in the hip hop genre. Yesterday, we checked out a sort of double song from Kendrick Lamar, and today we're going to be looking at a song from a band called Clipping. The song is called Ends, and that's about all I got to go on it. So let's dive into this and see what's going on.
Okay, watch them birds fly south for the winter. Re-up, so for cushion money for the dinner. Crank that heat up, cause the winter's getting colder. The globe is getting warmer, the block is getting hotter. Young and sipping molly water, holla, hallelujah. A little dabble, do ya?
Very monotonous.
Dapper in the best of hoodie, fresh and full of bullies. Bully blocking, pistol cocky, gangster walking. White tee rocking, gold teeth option, mouthpiece talking. White girl hawking, got the tools who need a fix. This shit gon' roto-root ya. You got two choices, be the body or the shooter. Both embody a maneuver. As the ghetto mature, what they said was manure, now call it ghetto couture. So it's best to make sure your hood is ghetto du jour. Instagram and the guns, YouTube the road.
I really like that vocal widening that they do to emphasize specific beats.
On a t-shirt mean you won and the game is over. Once upon a time there was a middle of a story, but fuck it, they need some ends. Shoot up in the air, see where it come down, see where it come down. Don't look now. Once upon a time there was somebody.
Really interesting phrasing going on here as well.
Shoot it in the vein, see if you come down, see if you come down. Don't look now. Callous is from counting money, get a machine. They callous anyway, skin is a dream, skin of the teeth. Skin in the beast is easy, you sleeping on people's skin.
Glitching it up now?
Murder for sport, watch the murder report. On a TV with a scorecard and a 40, of course. Fantasy killer, killing the time till another reason to kill up another dream come around in this rodeo show. She ride like only a hoe, putting these haters around you talking that Belle Biv DeVoe. But if that pussy is poison, then the whole block would be deaded. And plus fucking is too personal, you just getting some head, it's nobody getting close. Tongues reach it the most, they say the sticks and the stone, shit they forget in the toast. Bullets hurt worse than all that if they tracing them all back to the same ones who say they keeping you safe and it's all bad. Once upon a time there was a middle of a story, but fuck it, they need some ends. Shoot up in the air, see where it come down, see where it come down. Don't look now. Once upon a time there was somebody in this story, but fuck it, they need some ends. Shoot it in the vein, see if you come down, see if you come down. Don't look now. Eyes closed, hands up, don't look and don't say nothing.
But it's still an 8-bar phrase of 4/4.
Broke, robbing the broken, it's broken pieces of sanity on the flow. Scattered for show, jigsaw in the brain. Rorschach is for psychos, ain't nobody crazy in
Very
here.
tense with that synth line going on.
The vitamin of environment is providing desire for Vicodin and fueling fire for violence, calling it wiling while they while away another little while, claiming profiles and files on all these hustlers.
Dude, these rhythmic hits in the rhyming scheme are so good.
Everyone's at a loss for words. They wonder why the raps are full of floss and boss and murderers. Cause killing shit is less painful than feeling shit, and the dead can't be defendants. Why live old without a pension? Once upon a time there was a middle of a story, but fuck it, they need some ends. Shoot up in the air, see where it come down, see where it come down. Don't look now. Once upon a time there was
Almost
somebody
feels
in this story, but fuck it, they need some ends.
like Release in the background with the synth once again.
See if you come down. Don't look now. Once upon a time there was a moral to a story, but fuck it, they need some ends. Scream it in the wind. See who come around. See who come around. Don't look now. Once upon a time there was an ending to this story, but fuck it.
Interesting. So it kind of ends on a, and it's very irresolute, right? Interesting. So, like yesterday, we're going to start with the music, as I typically do, kind of touch on some of the things that are going on, and then dive into the lyrics, which I think is going to be the meat of this video. Musically, it's kind of one note, which is certainly a bit different for clipping, at least in my limited experience with them. They typically have a lot of musical ideas in their structure. And it's not that this is all one single idea. We do see a couple of ideas. We have a verse and chorus. Both of those have different ideas to them, and we do extrapolate on them. They're not stagnant. The verse 1, verse 2, and I think verse 3, maybe verse 4, they all have they all grow musically. Where we start out, well, we'll get into that in a bit. They grow musically though. New ideas are added on, they're embellished, there are variations put on them, and the same thing happens in the chorus as well. The chorus, the first time we hear the chorus is not the same as the last time we hear the chorus. There's always things being added on. This song in particular, though, really digs into a chaotic element, though. We notice it right from the beginning with all the glitchy elements, and somewhere near the end of the song, I think it's the final verse, the variation on the verse beat is glitch. So, yeah, those I think are the two main ideas I want to talk about right here. Is the use of glitchy elements to create a chaotic feeling, and the use of variation to keep an idea evolving over the course of the song. So what we have here then is, we're gonna start with variation, I think, because I think this is the most important aspect. Even though the song starts with glitch, that typically denotates it as um, the thesis statement of the song. It's the first thing you hear, right? That's the point of a thesis statement. It's the first thing you see. But even though I think that kind of gives it a little bit more weight, I don't think it's the most important part here. This musically, this song evolves constantly. Our first verse is a single tone, and for a lot of it, it's a single note, and just kind of holds it out. I think there's a rhythm to it, but honestly, I can't remember if that rhythm was actually something I heard in this tone or if it was something I was applying to the tone based on the vocal rhythm. But either way, there's at least a perceived rhythm to it, and every 4 bars or whatever, we'll jump up to a note and then come back down real quick. We'll be on there for like a bar, maybe tops. And we come back down. And one time we went up 2 notes and then we came back down. And no matter how far we climbed, though, we always came back to this core resting point. And this is something that we see all throughout the verses. And when we get to verse 2, though, we introduce a drum track. And we introduce some chordal ideas to the singular tone. It's a bit wider. And so it makes it feel fuller, makes it feel more complete. But we're not really doing anything differently. It's still the same song, or it's still the same line. You hold this note, you go up, you come back down. You hold the note out, you go up a couple, you come back down. You hold it out again. Nothing's really changed. It's a little nicer, right? We have an actual drum beat here. Our rhythmic component isn't created from our melody. It's not created from our chord structure. It's not created from anything else. We actually have a percussive instrument providing our rhythmic component. And our single note isn't so monotonous, which is something I said right off the bat. The beginning of the song came in and it was just literally one note. And then when we get to the second part, though, it fleshes that out a little bit. We get a chord structure to it. And then the third time, though, is a deconstruction of this. So if the first thing was our baseline, and then it was our evolution, now it's our deconstruction of the evolution. It's broken. This is where the glitch aspect comes in. The the melodic component is still there, but it gets interrupted frequently, sort of waving in and out. It's glitchy, it's distorted, it's corrupted. Um, it's not whole. And I'm real curious to dive into the lyrics later. I know yesterday I had the lyrics pulled up. I meant to do the same here today just because I mentioned that, the lyrics are more important than the music in a lot of this hip hop music. Um, the music's mostly there to create the vibe and the beat, and then the lyrics are what you really dig into. And I made a mistake and fell into old habits, and I didn't do that. So I don't know what the what the lyrics are going into this, but those are some of the things I might look for in the lyrics, especially since I know clipping typically does associate their musical component with their lyrical component very strongly. But yeah, the idea of evolution or of supporting an idea and then deconstructing it, making it incomplete again. And then we go to the chorus. And the chorus, I think, is the first time that we get introduced to a drum track because the first verse doesn't have one. And, I think there's a light note there at the beginning. I don't remember the first chorus very clearly, actually. Even the second chorus is kind of flaking. The third chorus, though, was the biggest point. We had synths in the back. Oh, I forgot about the synth in the third verse, too. There's a synth in the third chorus, though, that kind of provides this levity. It feels bright against everything else that came before it. The synth in the third verse is very creeping, very ominous. It's a bunch of eighth note hits that kind of remind me of, um, some of John Carpenter's synth work for his horror films, or, even what is it? I can't think. Is it Halloween? The Halloween theme song from like the old 80s movie Halloween? I can't remember. Anyways, it's just a bunch of eighth notes on a piano. Um, and that's like the exact kind of creeping vibe. It's these quiet, constant eighth notes that are working within highly tense, distressing distances, note relationships. And it's just a really creeping vibe that's put on top of all this glitch stuff that we're hearing as well. And then that leads us into the synth for the final chorus, though, I think it's the final chorus, where we have this, very angelic choir-esque section sitting above everything else. And I'm not really sure what to make of this yet. It seems in stark contrast to everything else that's happening in the music. Even when we look at the ending of the song, which sort of ends abruptly, it doesn't really have a strong resolution. This sort of implies a resolution, or at least an element of peace, which isn't present anywhere else in the song. This synth is very out of place, and I'm curious, like I said, to dig into the lyrics and see if there's anything in there about feeling out of place that would kind of give me an idea of what this synthesizer is supposed to represent in that final chorus. Before we dig into the lyrics as well, I do want to talk about the time signature, or I should say the syncopation of rhythms. Technically, this is a 4/4 song. I don't think that ever changes. Even the chorus, which feels very irresolute, and I actually thought had a half bar finality to it. I thought the final bar was 2/4, and it is not. But when he says something, I don't remember, but it feels, it's 4 beat phrases, right? And it feels like it's all, it starts on a bar, ends on a bar. And because we get into this groove, the final 2 beats feel chopped off because there isn't a 3 and a 4 there. But the thing is that by this point, this vocal line actually starts on beat 3, which makes everything line up perfectly. But the way that we got there is sort of disrupting the rhythmic pattern in the meter, in the opening of the chorus, and then we have that wide gap. He says something, and then we have a few moments of silence, and then we get into the rest of the chorus. And that whole opening moment, the first line and then the silence, disrupts at least my perception of the time signature. It actually is an 8-bar phrase of 4/4, but the beginning disrupts it so much that by the time the vocals come back in, the rapping comes back in, my placement of 1 is different. It's different than it should be, and it makes the chorus feel incomplete. It makes it feel like it stops abruptly, even though it doesn't. It's working perfectly within the 8 bars. It is an incomplete end, or is a perceived incomplete ending that's actually complete. Very interesting idea there. And there's actually a lot of rhythmic stuff going on in the rapping. Yeah, rhythmic stuff. I hope I said rhythmic stuff. There's a lot of rhythmic stuff going on in the rapping, which is not odd. The really nice thing about rap is that it pays attention to cadence and meter, not too unlike poetry does. Um, or I should say maybe free poetry does, which is kind of what rap feels to me. More rigid poetic writing is typically how rock and metal work with their phrasing and rhyme schemes, and this kind of fits the more complex elements of free poetry or spoken word. And just kind of falling in line with that, there's a more of a focus on meter and rhythmic components that I think clipping does very well. The way that the feeling of the time signature can get changed just by messing with the phrasing of the words, and choosing what notes to accent can really change the flow of these sections. And I think that's phenomenal. Usually we attribute this to the drums. I was about to say one instrument controlling the perceived time. That's crazy, but it really isn't. Usually it's the drums, though. We don't typically give that kind of power to the vocalist. And I really like how that's present here. Even when we have a drummer or percussive instruments, the vocals are still kind of what dictates the feeling of the flow. And I think the last thing I want to touch on is the widened vocals. To me, it was strange to begin with. I slowly warmed up to it. By like the second verse, I was completely cool with it. But it was very unsettling in that first verse when we get this narrow, centered, kind of smaller vocal line. And every once in a while, when he wants to accent a syllable or a specific beat, we get these, panned wide. They're not even like super panned. Maybe they are 100% to each side, but they just have a bunch of width to them. They're kind of covering everything. And it makes these specific syllables feel like shouts from a god, right? There's all this width and reverb on it that it kind of fills up all of the sound sphere, and then we return to this very timid vocal again. It barely takes up any space. Um, and like I said, it took me a while to warm up to this. It's a very unique way of creating vocals, but it also works in the way of rhythmic accenting, more so than just having a staccato or an accented beat. This is a different kind of accent that I think works well with spoken voice. I can't imagine doing something like this with a snare hit to accent it. I think just having the volume rise of a harder hit is a much better way to accent a snare. I'm not too sure that just pushing more air through and kind of tensing up your core to get more of a directed hit out of some of these syllables is the way to go about it. Different instruments require different methods and ways to play them. I think we all know that. And it never really occurred to me that a volume-based accent is not always the way that you want to accent something with every instrument. I think it can be done with the vocals, but in this specific context, especially with rapping, where flexibility and just sort of that dexterity, right? Of moving between all these syllables quickly, that putting that extra weight could slow down the flow itself. So finding other ways to create accents with that, especially when you're using the voice as a rhythmic instrument alongside a melodic one and a storytelling one, it's a interesting way to solve that problem of how do I allow the voice to create accents without messing with the flow itself. And I think they did a fantastic job doing that. Like I said, it took me a bit to warm up to it, but I can't really imagine the song without that now. So I guess this is where we're going to dive into the lyrics here and see what's going on. Uh, Dang, even for just, I mean, they were rapid fire there at the beginning. That first verse seemed like it was going on forever, but this is just a 4-minute song, and there's a lot of words here. A 4-minute song in rock or even metal would have a quarter of this. So I guess strap in. This might be a long lyrical breakdown section. So it starts out, he says, okay, watch the birds fly south for the winter, re-up, sofa cushion money for the dinner, crank that heat up because the winter's getting colder, the globe is getting warmer, the block is getting hotter, youngin' sippin' molly water. Hallelujah. The first two lines I got nothing. I have no idea what I maybe this is referring we're what is this? Track 13. I'm trying to collect my thoughts here. I know I'm stuttering a lot. I can't get a sentence out. This is track 13 of an album. And I don't know if maybe it has anything to do with other tracks. Maybe there's some callbacks to something else on this album or another album entirely. Uh, but I don't know who the birds are flying south for the winter. Like, I get the concept, right? Birds go south to stay warm when it gets colder. I'm not sure what that has to do with what we're getting into here. I think it's an interesting way to start the story, though, because it puts my mind into sort of an idea of immigration, right? Moving from one place to another. Sofa cushion money for the dinner. I mean, if you're having to search for change in your sofa to buy dinner, I don't think you're in a great place financially. I don't know if that's what he's alluding to. Crank the heat up because the winter gets colder, but the globe is getting warmer. The block's getting hotter, and youngins are sipping molly. What is molly water? I mean, and some of this seems to go in opposite direction. It says the winter's getting colder, but the globe is getting warmer. I guess those two are not. They're not at ends with each other. If we're getting into the winter season, it could definitely, we will see temperatures drop, and maybe they're just not dropping as far as they did last year, but that doesn't mean it's not cold this year. So it just seems like he's saying that there's, uh, you know, problems all around, right? That we have the micro level problem of it's getting cold, but the macro level problem that, we're dealing with global warming. But the block is getting hotter. I don't know. A little dab will do ya, then gather dapper in the best, a hoodie fresh, and full of foolies, bully blocking, pistol cocking, gangster walking, girl white tee rocking, gold teeth option, mouthpiece talking, white girl hawking. Remember I was talking about sort of rhythmic cadence and the rhyme schemes that were being presented in here. And this is one of those moments that I think it just rolls off the tongue so well, and it's this constant attack. And I really loved this moment when it came up. Now that I know what he's saying, though, I don't really know what he's saying. I don't think this is a great way to start the lyric section. I'm halfway through the first verse, and I don't think I'm any wiser on what's going on. But I love the way that we had a specific cadence going into this. He switched it up for this moment. He knew what sort of meter work best, or rhythmic component would work best to portray this concept, not only just uh, rhythmically to get all these syllables in such a short amount of time, but also just making it super catchy as well. It really is a fine line to walk between making it poetically beautiful, where it's listenable and catchy, but also getting the information out there. Um, but it looks like he's just saying that people are bullies and they've got their guns and their gold teeth, and it seems maybe they talk a lot. I don't know what mouthpiece talking is, but maybe it's all about putting up a front of being a tough guy, right? I don't know. It says got the tools who need a fix. That's gonna roto root ya. I don't know what that word is. You got two choices: be the body or the shooter. Both embody a maneuver. Has the ghetto matured? What they said was manure, now call it ghetto couture. So it's best to make sure your hood is ghetto de jour. Instagramming the guns, YouTube the roach on the floor. Who's ready to die for it? The fame you know is golden. Your face on a t-shirt means you won, and the game's over. All right, so the second half, though, I think is kind of pushing it in the same area as yesterday's Kendrick Lamar, where we're talking about uh, gang violence again, right? So we have people who are uh, poor, I guess, having to dig through their sofas just to find money for food. Um, but you got to turn the heat up because it's getting cold, so there's another cost keeping the poor. Um, there's people walking around. I had said putting up a front, but maybe this is a description of people who are in gangs. Not sure about the tools. But he says you got two choices in this situation. You can be the body or the shooter. So you can either shoot somebody or you can be shot. But both embody a maneuver. Hmm. Has the ghetto matured? What they once said was garbage is now ghetto couture. Couture. That's like so I guess what he's saying here is that, it used to be low class to dress, as he says, ghetto, and now it's in fashion. So it's best to make sure your hood is ghetto de jour. Instagramming your guns, YouTube the roach on the floor. So yeah, he's saying that, what used to be low class is now what's popular to be presented as, right? So make sure that you dress everything up to fit in with the current culture. Go ahead and Instagram your guns. Show them how gangster you are, and YouTube the roach on the floor. I guess kind of saying because going back to the idea of sofa cushion money, that these people don't have a lot. So when they're trying to present themselves as influencers on Instagram or whatever, they don't really have a lot to show off. So, show off what you got, even if it's just the roach on the floor. It says, who's ready to die for it? The fame that you know is golden. Your face on a t-shirt means you won and the game's over. Don't quite know that. So here we hit the chorus. Let's see what's going on here. Once upon a time there was a middle of a story, but forget it, they need ends. Shoot up in the air and see where it comes down. Don't look now. Once upon a time there was somebody in this story, but they need some ends. So shoot it in the vein and see if you come down. Don't look now. So I like this, right? We have this sort of flip-flop of the idea of shooting up, right? The first one seems to be about legitimately firing a weapon into the air and see where it comes down. The second one is about drugs. Shoot it in the vein and see if you come down. Sort of like, what is this? Like rolling the dice, right? You see where the bullets come down and you see if you'll survive this drug fix, right? See, that's how I'm reading it. See if you come down. It's kind of like seeing if, because when you're when you're taking drugs, the purpose is typically to get high, right? So I'm assuming that if you come down after taking drugs, you've died. That's kind of how I'm reading that. So it all seems like a gamble, right? You shoot your gun and see what it hits. It's almost, it's gambling. It's random. It's almost senseless in a way. And the same thing goes with the taking the drugs. It's random. It's a gamble. Are you going to get your fix or are you going to die? Is this the end of your story? Is this the end of your story? Stories. All right. So he says, once upon a time there was a middle of a story, but they all need ends. So is this about like okay, so assuming we're talking about poor communities where gang violence is present and drug use is common, we hear about this stuff on the news. At least in America, it's not uncommon to hear about this in the 24-hour news cycle. But that's usually the end of it. And we kind of touched on this in Kendrick Lamar's video yesterday when he said something along the lines of, a stray bullet caught a young girl and the mother was like in tears and somebody's like, oh, who's got the footage? Channel 9's around the corner, something like that. To the family, it was this major traumatic event, but to the news station, it was just Tuesday, I think is the way I worded that. And that's kind of what's happening here. The news stories need their stories, but they just need the story itself. They don't care about the middle. They don't care about the emotion. They don't care about who these people were prior to this end. They just care about the event itself. And that's kind of how I'm reading that. Once upon a time, there was a middle of the story when we cared about people. But you know what? We just need some ends now. So shoot up in the air and see where it comes down. So, we need senseless violence, right? That's kind of what I'm getting here. I think I'm missing something here. It doesn't feel like a complete reading, but I think I'm close there. And the same thing on the other side, right? There used to be somebody in the story. We don't care about the druggies anymore, right? They're not people. They're just the end of a story, right? And the way that they're used to push narratives, and the way that we have our war on drugs, right? That we had in the 2000s or whatever, 90s. I don't remember when that was. It's probably still going on right now. Actually, I know it's still going on because of the way we incarcerate drug use. But yeah, so I think that's what he's saying is that we don't care about the middle of the story. We don't care about learning about people or their situations or their environments. We just care about hearing about the violence. We care about hearing about the drug use so that we can create our own narratives based on that. So don't look now, right? He says we need ends. Don't start looking for the middle of the story. Don't start looking for the characters in the story anymore, right? Just hurt yourselves so that the people on the outside of these areas have a story to tell, right? Have the end of a story to tell. So verse 2 says, calluses from count money, get a machine, they callous anyway. Skin is a dream. Skin of the teeth, skinning the beast is easy. You sleeping on people's skin if you really a G. All right, so I guess this is going back to the framing of gangster life, possibly. He says you got calluses from, you got a lot of money, right? You're counting it by hand, you're getting calluses that way. So you get a counting machine, and you get calluses anyways because skin is a dream. I think skin is being used there metaphorically, and I'm not quite cutting it. Skin of the teeth, though, that's like barely scraping by. He says skinning the beast is easy. You're sleeping on people's skin if you're really a G. Yeah, don't know. I'm not. Murder for sport, watching the murder report on the TV with a scorecard and a 40, of course. Yeah, I think this goes back to the idea of news stations capturing the violence and showing it to the rest of the nation, right? I like the idea of calling it a sport with a scorecard and all that. Fantasy killer killing the time till another reason to kill up. Another dream. Come around in the rodeo show. We start talking about, it seems like interpersonal, not non-emotional sex right here. Um, it says it ends because having sex is too personal. So you're just having some head. Is close? Is nobody getting close? Tongues reach the most. They say the sticks and stones, but they forget the toast. It's like you sticks and stones break my bones kind of thing. Words never hurt me. Say they forget the toast though. Bullets hurt worser than all that if they trace them all back to the same ones who say you keeping you safe and it's all bad. So it says bullets hurt worse when the ones who say they're keeping you safe are the ones that are shooting you, which I think is a direct call out to the police in a lot of these communities. We come back to the chorus once again, and nothing's changed there. So interestingly, this area where we talk about, I mean, I really didn't get much out of this verse too, did I? Uh, just the news stations capturing the stories, and then the police being just as harmful to the communities as the residents within them. This was the moment where the music started to widen out a little bit. We got the chords on the main synth line. We had the drum kit come in, and this felt like, to me, like a widening of the idea, right? Making it bigger, making it more full, but I don't think the words go in that direction at all. So I think my reading of it become, evolving and possibly trying to attain its potential, and then the third verse disrupting it with its glitch might not be actually something that comes up in the lyrics, because verse 2 doesn't really talk about coming up at all. It's more just about the way that things are and that they're still not great. So verse 3, this is where the glitch music came in. It says, eyes closed, hands up, don't look and don't say anything. You got nothing, but they don't know that. Oh, you got nothing, but they don't know that you got nothing. So the broker robbing the broke. Yeah, I mean, if you have petty theft going on in low income communities, you're robbing people who are in the same position as you. I mean, uh, yeah, just calling that straight out. Broken pieces of sanity on the floor that are scattered, jigsaws in the brain, Rorschachs for psychos. Nothing. Nobody's crazy in here. This is where logic is vital. Interesting. So he says that people aren't sane in here, but that nobody's crazy in here. He makes a very distinct line between crazy and insanity. Um, I wonder almost to say, because like he says that he, right after the broke robbing the broke, he states that there's broken pieces of sanity on the floor. I wonder if he's talking about how the pressures of the environment is driving people insane, but they're not crazy. He says this is where logic is vital. These people aren't committing these crimes and joining gangs and utilizing drugs because they've lost their minds, but because they've lost their sanity due to what I kind of think is due to the environment, right? If you're, if you have no way of paying your bills, especially if you have no way of keeping a roof over your head or your family's head, or and feeding your family, whether it's just yourself or you're a care provider for children, it really makes you evaluate doing things that are not morally sound and kind of going possibly even against your own code because you need to provide, right? You can't watch your kids starve, right? That is something that is one of the hardest things to do as a parent, is to know that you brought living beings into the world. They didn't ask for it, and you can't give them food. They're in pain. They're physically malnourished, that kind of vibe. And maybe they haven't gotten to that point yet, but you can see it on the verge, and you've got to do something drastic. And if you don't have a legal, moral recourse or course to get the money required to ensure that your family lives well, you might turn to some of this stuff, you know? And the same thing can go for depression too, right? Depression is something that needs to be treated. And most of the time, in my experience, people who do drugs don't always do it to, just for the fun of it. It's usually to escape reality. There's something going on in their world that they feel disempowered to change. So the best thing is reality escape. Or I should say the next best thing. And I think that's what he's saying is that these people don't make these decisions to, because they're crazy, right? Because no sane person would inject themselves with, with drugs like that, right? That's kind of the thing that people outside of the bubble say. But it's not about insanity or craziness. It's about the pressures put on them by their environment and them doing whatever they can to get by, right? To make it to the next day. Um, oh, actually, the next line, the vitamin of environment is providing desire for Vicodin and fueling fire for violence. First of all, especially when we combine in vital from the previous line, I love this alliteration of V's right here. But right here, he even says that the environment itself is what, I don't know what Vicodin is. I'm going to assume it's some sort of drug. He says that the environment itself is making this desire to do drugs and it's fueling the fires to commit violence, right? Call it whiling away while they while away, another the wild claim and profile the files on all these hustlers, and they can't catch what never was. Um, Yeah, first of all, that right there. Whiling, while, wild claim and profiles the files on all these hustlers. Just the way that he adapts while into files and like the transition between those, so good. Even with the soft rhyme of wild in there, we have the D on the end of while. It still works real well though. But I don't know what's going on here. Calling it whiling, while the while away another. Oh, while they while away another. Yeah, I got nothing. I think I'm missing a use of that word, a definition of it. And everyone here's been a ghost since day one. Say something. Say something. Everyone's at a loss for words. They wonder why the raps are full of floss and boss and murderers. 'Cause killing is less painful than feeling, and the dead can't be defendants, so why live old without a pension? Yeah. I mean, we hear this all the time, you know, uh, especially from, oh, okay, let me rephrase this. I hear this all the time from racist people in my environment. It says, why is all black entertainment just, rapping about killing people and rapping about being gangsters and all this stuff? And he states it right here, clear as day. They wonder why the raps are full of floss, boss, and murderers, right? He says, because killing stuff's less painful than feeling. Once again, it's another way of coping with the environment. So then we get up to the final chorus, and this one has a third line. So the first one, he says, shoot up in the air and see where it comes down, senseless violence. Shoot up in the vein and see if you come down, drug use. This time, though, he also says, once upon a time there was a moral to the stories, but they want some ends. We want to see the ends of this tale, even if we don't get anything out of it. He says, scream it in the wind and see who comes around. Don't look now. Almost like saying, bringing this back to the idea of, people who rap about this stuff. Him right here doing this, right? This entire rap is trying to bring attention to this. He's screaming about the help that these communities need, but it's literally screaming in the wind. There's no recipient to these words. He says, see who comes around. And then, like I said, the song ends without a strong moment of resolution. He even says, once upon a time there was an ending to this story, and that's it. The song ends. We don't get the next line of doing something and see who comes down or comes around or, whatever, and then don't look now. We don't get the second half of this chorus. It ends prematurely. Yeah. Definitely a heavy hitting track right here. And I think that's what it's all about. It's trying to bring awareness to the people in these communities who need help, right? And they're not getting it. And they're trying to live the best way they can, just trying to ensure that food gets on the table, and, trying to live to the next day because everybody's kind of pushed to their limits. And when you have communities of thousands of people all pushed to their limits, financially, physically, emotionally, mentally, I think I said financially already, I'm not sure, but I want to include that. There's going to be people who make decisions that might be a bit rash, might be irrational, but it's rational to them. It's what's going to help them make it to the next day, and it's not necessarily going to be good for the community. There becomes a point where it becomes dog eat dog. There's not enough money and food to go around for everybody. Something's going to have to happen when somebody who thinks they need it, or when they do need it and thinks it's their turn or whatever, doesn't get it, right? And basically it's just a boiling pot, right? It's gunpowder waiting to go off. And nobody is saying, hey, maybe we should get the gunpowder out of here. Maybe we should put more food and money into these areas. We just ignore them, even when they cry out in their art, in the news, they get ignored. And that's what this song's all about to me. And in a sense, I do see the music working that way then too. It's about people who are trying to better themselves. From verse 1 to verse 2, we hear some betterment there, right? The song gets fuller. We get the chord progression. We get an actual percussive element. We're adding things, right? It's richer in a sense, if we want to work with metaphor there. But by the third verse, it's falling apart. It's destroyed. It's glitchy. It really doesn't matter where the glitches are coming from, whether it's within or without. We are seeing a destruction of the richness that we had just created. And yeah, just, it's heartbreaking, right? Those are my thoughts on Clippings Ends. This is where you guys come in. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you thought of this one. Anything that stood out to you, anything you want to add to the conversation. I know there were a lot of lines in here that I didn't quite pick up on. If you want to add to it, I'm sure it's going to deepen the understanding of the song. I think I'm pretty spot on with what I got, but I still think I only understood half the lines out of this one, and I definitely did not even catch on any of the hidden references or strong metaphors going on. The whole thing about the birds flying south at the beginning is still lost on me. So, yeah, hit me up with that. All right. Above the comment section is a description box, and there's a link for a link tree. Take you to this menu right here. Has everything related to the channel. You can pick up some merch, follow me on Twitter, join the Patreon, all sorts of stuff. Go ahead and check it out. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That does not wrap it up for today. About 20 minutes ago, the special selection came out. You can go check that out if you want. I don't know what it is, though. It's a song called Cheating the NASA Space Physical. So, I don't know. That sounds fun. Go ahead and check that out. If not, though, I'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. We're going to be checking out some more hip-hop and looking at another special selection. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.